Hi, everyone. Welcome to our pre-recorded monthly coaches call. This is call number 6. And the theme for today's coaches call is integrating SEL into your MTSS framework. So we're going to start with just an SEL overview. We know that this is something that some of you are probably utilizing in your school settings. Some of you might be using SEL curriculum in universal ways. Some of you might be using it as interventions. What we want to do is offer you just some resources and kind of just an overview. If this is something that you are not currently utilizing within your district, this is a great starting place, but obviously the conversation is, again, just a jump point to it for us to start looking at SEL. There's a lot more to the conversation, and we can certainly take a deep dive with you. This is something that we work in collaboration at the IU with our social work team to bring you different curriculum options and provide a more thorough overview of SEL and the options that you have to utilize different curriculum. So when we think about social and emotional learning, we want to make sure that we're remembering that this is a part of our MTSS framework. It's embedded within the 3 triangles. When we look at MTSS, we're focusing on the whole student, but taking into close consideration the academic, behavior, and social emotional components to kind of their day. So underneath that MTSS umbrella, a lot of times we forget that social and emotional learning piece, but it is there, and it's really important that we make sure that we are taking a close look at our systems and practices and our data collection with regard to SEL. So when we look at social emotional learning, it's really that part of human development that a lot of times I think when I look back on my educational career, these were skills that maybe I was learning outside of the classroom. I was kind of coming to school with an already developed SEL background just from my home setting. Unfortunately, we're seeing more and more that these skills are not being developed in the home setting. We can get into whatever those reasons might be, but this is kind of an area that is impacting our pathway to academic and behavioral success is really some of these missing skills under SEL. So really, when we look at what SEL is, it's the process through which people acquire and apply that knowledge, skills, and their attitudes to develop healthy identities, manage their emotions, and achieve personal and collective goals. It helps them feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain those supportive relationships, and make responsible decisions. And again, where we maybe see, looking back maybe 10, 15 years ago, some of our students were presenting these skills already to us. Now we're recognizing the need to sort of develop these skills and work on them within the classroom setting. Now, the best way to do this is through integrating it to the things that we're already doing it and not sort of teaching these skills necessarily in isolation, but just kind of making it a part of our processes that are already happening on a daily basis. CASEL's 5 core competencies of social emotional learning are it's really our roadmap for kind of the scope and sequence of how we roll out these SEL practices to our students. Everything kind of fits in within this wheel. When we look at those core competencies of self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness, we can kind of see the global outreaches that really starts in the classroom, but then it's sort of applying beyond that. And the end goal is into our communities where we want to see our students really thrive. That's the kind of their real life is when they leave, the safety, the 4 walls within our school building, that they are able to be successful, productive members of society. Breaking those down a little further, when we think of self-awareness, it's really just an understanding of ourself, our own emotions and our thoughts, and how they kind of influence our behavior. Self-management is the process in which we can kind of regulate and manage those emotions and behaviors in different situations. Social awareness is understanding that there are others, it's kind of losing that egocentrism and understanding that other people have different perspectives, other backgrounds, diversity, and inclusion. We want to make sure that we have solid relationship skills where we can establish and maintain healthy and supportive relationships and effectively navigate those. And then responsible decision making. It's making those constructive choices about personal behavior and social interactions across situations. So taking a look at these, I really, from a PBIS lens, this is what our PBIS programs are aiming to sort of produce in our students. This isn't something that is in isolation. It's kind of in accordance with the things that we are doing within our PBIS framework, but just making sure that we are taking into consideration, just like when we can't say a child should know how to do this. They're in third grade. They should know how to play appropriately on the playground. We want to embed that into maybe the teaching of those behavioral expectations, also taking into consideration how we can incorporate social awareness into those lessons that we're doing already with our PBIS framework. So some of the benefits of SEL: building those positive and trusting relationships, leading to improved academic outcomes. If we think back to those skills, those 5 core competencies, when we have those skills kind of firing on all cylinders, we are going to see an uptick in positive academic success, along with obviously behavioral success as well. It improves their ability to manage stress, anxiety, and depression. Again, it's not going to kind of cure that. There isn't that quick fix for it, but if they can manage and cope and regulate, we're going to see them be able to handle those stressful situations or handle those anxiety-ridden situations and be more effective in the results. And then improving their attitude about themselves, others, and school. Again, improving that overall school climate. One kind of, I think, misconception maybe is that social emotional learning is just something that's happening for, a finite number of students in the school setting. Maybe that's when we see in an emotional support setting or autistic support, life skills. We want to kind of strip that narrative and remember that SEL is for all students. We want the same 3-level kind of tiered approach when we think about PBIS. PBIS is not just for an isolated group of students who need sort of reminders, refreshers, redirection around behavior. It starts at that universal approach. SEL is the same way. We want to make sure that we have the 3-level approach to address those student needs. So starting with that universal, that sort of preventative layer, focus on promoting those SEL competencies, creating that learning environment so that all students can benefit. Again, within that tier 1, we're making sure that we have a plan that we implement. We evaluate the efficacy of that plan. We're kind of defining the problems that we see and then analyzing the data that we have from that. The same way that we would in the academic and behavioral realm, SEL is going to be no different. Really, academics and or behavior along with our SEL, that's kind of going to be a similar process. Next, taking a look at maybe, those tier 2 groups, some of those students who need just a little bit of an intervention with regards to their tier 2 SEL understanding. So if they're getting universal curriculum in the whole class, then we can say, okay, what they're getting there isn't working to address all of those needs. How can we take that and kind of level it up so that we're not just giving them a pull-out social skills group, but that it's really relayed back to data, relayed back to their universal programming. So if we see in a classroom that, this student is really struggling with responsible decision making, we have data that supports that, whether it is a universal screener or some type of rating scale. Something to say, okay, this is how I know they're struggling with responsible decision making. It's not just my feelings. I have feelings about that, but I have facts, I have data to back that up. And then we're going to take that, okay, how can we put them into maybe a small group where they're practicing that responsible decision making? Maybe it's their progress monitoring that of what that kind of, how those outcomes can be improved. And then at the very top, we have those intensive interventions. Yes, we still have students who, with all of these things in place, are going to need those skills presented to them in, a tier 3 way, whether that's in the emotional support classroom because of a diagnosis or whatever the case may be. We recognize that, but with all of these layers, if a child is receiving emotional support at the tier 3 level, but they're not getting anything universal, we can't say that they wouldn't respond to it. Maybe we have good evidence that in the past they haven't, but again, we need to do our due diligence and kind of make sure that our triangle isn't, inverted in that regard. So we need the explicit teaching of the SEL instruction. Unfortunately, we can't just assume that by osmosis, through kind of just being involved in society, that these children are going to, absorb that information and take it in. There needs to be some explicit teaching of that. The same way that at the beginning of each year, I was teaching 4th grade. I, could assume that throughout their entire educational career, they knew how to put their cap on their marker. That was something that, they've experienced markers before. This wasn't a new material, but I still did an interactive modeling on that because I knew I've seen 9 and 10-year-olds with their markers. Again, that's something that you take that time, explicitly teach and reinforce, and you see those results. You can't just assume that they have taught that or they have been taught that years prior. Again, take that time, set up those, those explicit teaching, those interactive modelings of what your expectations are. SEL is the same. We need some explicit teaching of that. So when we're thinking about SEL, again, using supplemental aids or resources are not a problem, but we want to make sure that we're not just typing in things on Teachers Pay Teachers or going to Pinterest or Instagram, TikTok. While there's great strategies and resources out there and we want to kind of bring everything together, we do want to make sure that what we are teaching is evidence-based. We look for things like the castle wheel of approval on some of our resources, but a great starting place is What Works Clearinghouse. Again, that's for any curricula that you might be looking at, but making sure that there is evidence and research to back up. Again, not saying that you can't find resources on Pinterest and Teachers Pay Teachers and TikTok and Instagram, but we want to make sure that the bulk of what we are utilizing is research and evidence-based. So there are some websites here that are linked to make sure that we are, again, checking that research-based approach. Some that we have, again, this is something we can come out with your districts and kind of go over and do a curriculum deep dive. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about these first ones just because some of the ones that I want to show you are the one that I want to really focus on is a great free resource that you could use as your base curriculum or as a supplemental resource. But one that we, again, have and we talk about is our PATHS curriculum. Second Step is another one. I don't have Positive Action linked in here, but that's another one that we talk about. Again, those are just some of the ones that are ones that we hear great success. We've utilized ourselves in our classroom settings, but we have access to bring samples out to your districts and kind of do a curriculum walkthrough with you and your team. Challengingbehavior.org is just some free SEL resources. There's some libraries, social stories. That QR code, if you scan that, will take you straight to Challenging Behavior. This would be, again, just more of a supplemental. We're not, you wouldn't really be utilizing this for your entire curriculum. But the one I really want to focus is Be Good People. So this is a free option to use as universal SEL curriculum. You could use as supplemental or advanced tiers interventions. This is research-based. It's developed by teachers for teachers. This came about through the pandemic from the University of Minnesota and some of the staff that was working there at the time in the psychology and education department. There's scope and sequence that it's outlined for, the entire school year. So I'm going to take a click on this and kind of walk you through. So on this very first kind of like homepage, I've linked here just the support for educators. If you, lose the link to this. This is something that if you type in Be Good People on Google, it'll link you to another portion of the site that I'm going to show you. But Be Good People just seems to be an easy to remember kind of tagline or catchphrase that sometimes people will just refer to this site as Be Good People, but it's a lot more than just that curriculum. But I wanted to start with just an overview under the educator tab. So that's kind of where I'm starting here under this tab for educators. If you get lost or you end up on a different link, you can always kind of start back here at the support for educators under this tab at the top here. So I just want to walk you through before we get to the Be Good People curriculum and just kind of showcase some of this site. Now, this is nothing new. We have actually shared this before, but this could be a new lens. I always joke that this site is kind of like Alice down the rabbit hole where you can get lost and find something. I've been looking at this site now for almost 4 years, and each time I look at it, I find something new. So it is definitely a treasure trove of resources, and we're going to highlight the Be Good People curriculum for SEL today, but just wanted to kind of antiquate you with some of the other resources that you might find useful. So again, under the Support for Educators tab up here, under the Tier 1 practices, you can find a plethora of different expectations, preventative measures, reinforcement strategies, and response strategies to behavior at the Tier 1 level. If you click on any of these links, they will take you to a Google slide and some different resources that you can use. So this could be used in a coaching capacity if you are trying to do some type of professional development with your staff. Maybe it's just something quick. You have like 20 minutes of time you are allotted and you choose one of these. Maybe you're thinking of opportunities to respond as an engagement tool. So you click on opportunities to respond. There's a ready to go slideshow for you. And then, like I said, a treasure trove of different resources that you can utilize and share with your staff on how to bolster up their opportunities to respond. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time. Again, you could be on this for hours, days, just kind of looking through some of these different tier ones. I'm going to go back to that support for educators. It's the same thing for tier 2. Again, some different interventions, all linked with progress monitoring and a slide deck that kind of gives you an overview of the intervention. And the tier 3 is definitely getting a little bit into the FBA, function of behavior kind of lens. But this is something where if you are responsible or in conjunction with your school psychologist are responsible for completing FBAs or, working on a positive behavior support plan, this is definitely a place where you can kind of go to gather some resources and some ideas. But our focus is really going to be within this Be Good People curriculum because we're focusing on the SEL. So, like I said, this is a completely free resource for you to use. Underneath the Be Good People curriculum, you can see it's broken down by grade bands, but within each of these grade bands, it takes it kind of a step further, and I'll show you that. In addition, there are interventions as well. So looking at tier 2, tier 3 special education interventions, those exist for you as well, but I'm just going to focus heavily on sort of that tier 1 school-wide instruction. So I'm going to pick the 4 to 5 grade band. That's kind of my heartland. But each of these is set up very similar. So one thing I want you to note that when you click on a grade band, you will always see these implementation resources. So if you're thinking, wow, I maybe can have a couple teachers pilot this or start implementing this, but you don't know where to start with them, this is exactly where you want to go, the implementation resources. There's kind of a walkthrough little training guide and a scope and sequence for you. So this training guide, again, it says coaching, is a 25-minute long kind of walkthrough. And this is Nick Van Oss. He's actually the creator and one of the primary founders of Be Good People and the Google site. Nick is a real person that you can email. Again, I know I say real person. He's not AI or a robot, but he is, it's again, not sort of this like mythical kind of creature. He is, working in the field and you're able to like send him an email, which I think is just fantastic when you have that kind of connection to the author of a program that you're utilizing. It's not sort of this publishing company that doesn't have like their boots on the ground. That to me is just such a tool to be able to reach out to him to ask any questions or get any advice on the utilization of this resource. So again, this is that implementation guide. So he kind of walks you through, how do you get started with this? The one thing that I want to highlight is where I think I would live as a classroom teacher would be in this pacing guide. So this is just a sample pacing guide that he breaks down, but if you click on this takes you to a Google Sheet and it has all the grade bands across the bottom. So again, I'm going to stick with my heartland as 4th grade. And if you were a 4th grade teacher, this breaks it down for you on how you could pace this throughout the year. It's taking into consideration what skills they developed in kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade. So again, maybe this is not completely manageable or the exact order that you want to teach this in, but it's the guesswork's already taken out of it for you. But maybe you're thinking of starting the year and you're like, okay, completing homework, following instructions, I kind of already touch on those. I'm going to start with using active listening. So again, I'm the 4th grade teacher. I can click on using active listening and I've got a slide deck ready to go, populated with different questions, different activities for my class to do, to go through and think about active listening. The other thing that I have are extension activities. So I'm going to go to the extension activities for active listening. And again, there are benchmarks listed there for you. We're talking about active listening. So some things that, are related in here would definitely be the relationship skills. But you can see here how to interrupt and get attention, joining group conversations, manners matter, sportsmanship and action, compliments, active listening right there. So I'm going to click on active listening. And this, remember, these are the extension activities. So it's in Google Slides, but there are some discussion questions for you to utilize with your students. So again, I'm going to take you back to that sample pacing guide. So if this is something that I wanted to use as a classroom teacher, what I would recommend doing is like making a copy of this, because this is in view only mode. And maybe you want to add some notes in there. Maybe you have different resources. So then this kind of becomes your planning and pacing guide for the Be Good People. And again, you're under that 4th grade grade band. Now, one other thing that I want you to take note of is there is a template. It's the 4th grade pacing guide for Be Good People instruction. So it kind of breaks it down into just, again, a different way to look at that. But there are some other kind of great links in here as well. Again, anything that is kind of ready-made and just a click away is what we're looking for, I think, in sometimes with thinking of it's just one more thing. Sometimes when we present our teachers with something and it's another curriculum that they have to really work through, again, we want our teachers to feel confident and comfortable with the content, but we want it to be something that they can easily execute as well. Again, this is just another great resource that you could, take a look at. It kind of breaks it down in a Google slide. And again, this was broken down by each week of the year that is similar to that pacing guide that we already looked at. Okay. Again, I'm not going to walk through absolutely everything, but there are some learning logs on here. We'd be here forever if I spent all this time looking at every last thing. So again, I'm going to go back to the 4th grade. I'm still in that 4th grade and 5th grade band of materials. That's how you can use it as kind of an overall curriculum for the year, but even just utilizing it as a supplemental resource is a great place to start. So if I am a 4th grade teacher and my Tier 1 data is showing that my students are struggling with maybe respecting others' belongings, that's been a common theme of us. We have lockers in 4th grade, and we are, just needing a reminder on respecting other people's personal space. I can just go on and click under respecting others' belongings, click on that individual lesson, and then I have a ready to go lesson on respecting other people's belongings or respecting other people's, materials. There are extension activities underneath each one of those, just like they were linked in the original pacing guide. So I think utilizing that as just sort of supplemental is, again, a fine place to start if nothing is happening. There's a community building. There's some flexible extension activities that can kind of go with a variety of different activities. And I'll talk about these calming strategies and mood meter visuals as well, because there's a lot of things on here that are linked in different places. So one other small kind of piece to an SEL overview or just like curriculum in general, it would be underneath this calming strategies toolbox. And you'll see some of these are kind of linked down here as well. So just to show you that you can get them in different places. So, bear with me while I do a heavy scroll here. Again, back up to the top. This was that Be Good People curriculum that was looking at sort of those universal grade bands. If we come back up here to the Calming Strategies toolbox, this is a resource that you can use in conjunction with the Be Good People curriculum or just in isolation. There's a mood meter check-in. There are different strategies to calm your body, calm your thoughts, express yourself, change your space, take care of yourself. And then again, some of those toolbox resources that were linked at the bottom of the Be Good People. So these could just be great handouts to have prepared and give to your teachers, or just to show them a place that they can go for a free link. And with that, I'll pop back onto our coaches call, and I have linked that here for you, the Be Good People, so that you have that. And then as always, we want you guys to fill out our feedback form. And there is the link for our Padlet. I hope that you guys found value in this, and we will see you next time.